Thank you everyone for joining us today for the first edition of Nautilus Notes Public, as we call it here. We are excited to get going. The format's kind of weird, depending on what you might be used to. It's not really a standard webinar thing. We are going to go through essentially a draft of a document that's going to become a blog post. And then it's going to be like a preview of a dev blog post with some commentary, getting into some of the details around these things. And that's going to be our format. And then we're also recording this, and we're gonna post it. A couple of ground rules real quick. We do have Q&A. So if you have a question, please use Zoom's Q&A feature. There is also a group chat as well. The Q&A, most of those will be answered just through the Q&A chat. We may address a couple of those as we go, but let's go ahead and dive in. I'm already getting ahead of myself. So you may be asking, what is the Nautilus Notes? And you may be asking who I am, because I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Matt Brown. I'm a solutions architect at Squid. And that I'm going to be one of the hosts for the Nautilus Notes, and I'm joined by Carl Sheffield. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Carl.
Awesome. And that is, all right, man, fantastic. Carl Sheffield is a product manager. We both work for the Use team, which we'll come back to. That's user success and evangelism here at Squid. So the story of the Nautilus Notes came out of the fact that Squid was growing as a product. There were a lot of new features that were coming out. This was in 2017. Platform had come out, and so Squid was no longer Salesforce only. You could now put Squid and use it to connect to data in a lot of different places. And there were new features that were coming out, and Squid solutions engineers were tasked with having to navigate a fairly complex, powerful product, and we wanted a way to all get better together. So I was talking with Tony Thomas, the VP of Global Services here at Squid. We were at Dreamforce, and we were saying, you know what? There's all kinds of things that we want to do. It'd be great to have, just an amazing knowledge-sharing database, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type thing. But one thing that we can do right now is we can just start to share stories. Day in and day out, solutions engineers are working through all kinds of different problems, connecting to different data, working through user experience challenges, navigating user requirements. And a lot of the time, those lessons learned are staying with those people. How do we get those out? And so we decided to have a doc that we would just put things in throughout the week. We collect those stories, hurdles, roadblocks that people hit, maybe really great feature combos that were just force multipliers. And we put them in there, and then we decided that we would get together every Friday, take an hour, and talk through it and get some context. And having that kind of unique combination of media where it's written, it's visual, there's dialogue, I think it really helps internalize things. We got to several times, just because we had all the right people in the room, we were able to identify things that were coming out in a new Salesforce release that might, lead to a bug that someone was going to hit, that kind of thing. So you get to see some unexpected cool things happen when you get those disparate groups of people in the room. And it's not just solutions engineers. As Nautilus Notes grew, we started to get folks from our product content team, our product and engineering team, and we got to see a lot of cool things kind of rise to the top there. All right, so what is the Nautilus Notes and what is it not? First, what it's not. We're not going to do deep troubleshooting. We're not going to do deep rabbit trails. These aren't deep dives. We are going to do those. We've got some that are out there on the community for you to view. We're not going to do, this isn't a getting started webinar. We are going to do those as well. So stay tuned for that. Those things are going to be coming. All right, so what is it? Well, I like to think of it, if we're sticking with the nautical theme, it's kind of a depth charge. So it's deep, short bursts. So this is for folks kind of at the deep end of the pool. If you've been spending time in Squid, you know what Squid does. We're going to be looking at a lot of things about what's possible. Maybe you didn't know this, maybe you didn't know that, It may spark some ideas, and then we're going to move on. And you're going to wish that we could stick around a little bit longer. And that's why we're going to do more content about those things in different contexts. We'll do deep dive videos.
Okay,
a lot
Matt,
of cool stuff.
I'm gonna do the
Oh yeah. All right,
time
Carl.
turkey. We're about 5 minutes in.
Okay.
Just keeping track of time. We got to make sure because we got a lot.
All right, thank you, Carl. Carl is our official time turkey, among other things. Thanks for keeping me on track. What we're going to do every time we do this, we're going to do this on a monthly basis, and we're going to scoop kind of the cream of the crop from what is learned internally at Squid, and we're going to share this on a monthly call and as a blog post, and there's going to be some repeated segments that we do. So some of the big chunks are going to be lessons learned. So we're going to hear what solutions engineers have run into. We're going to hear from one of our product contributors about a product feature to give us a sense of, hey, maybe you didn't know about this, or there's some nooks and crannies that could be really, really helpful. And here's the dream behind those features in the product. We're going to hear from a champion who's not at Squid, who's out there building with Squid each time, a partner or a customer, a person who is trying to solve problems and doing it with Squid. We want to hear from that. Each time we also want to look at a red flag. Hey, if you hear this, just know that's a risk multiplier. It might take some finesse. You might have to navigate some treacherous waters there. And then we're going to hear from our product content team and our product team as well. So it's kind of a state of Squid, for lack of a better term. Here's what's going on in the Squid world.
Just a quick back to the champion lesson learned. You men and women who are deep Squid folks, be looking for a call. We're going to need some content. We know you've got some great stuff. We want you to share it.
Yes, absolutely. This week we're going to hear from Mansoor Chadi at Sassly. He's going to share a really cool solution that he built for one of his clients. All right, so let's keep going. I'm already waxing way too eloquent here. So what's going on at Squid right now? Yeah, Carl, what do you got?
Don't forget Mike Lee.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So Mike in New York was the first person to register. Yes, thank you. And Mike, we are going to send you one of these new Squid shirts, which I'm just going to put on right now.
We're sending him that one, right?
We're going to pull an Andrew WK and put on a new shirt.
You gotta like,
yeah.
camera's too high.
So, okay, all right.
We got the full.
So Ken said I could show this off on the stipulation that I model this at
Work it, own
okay.
it,
Yeah,
work
I
it.
will be jump starting my modeling career this Thursday.
I think this is the
that's
public
good.
reveal of that shirt.
It
No
is.
one has seen it.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh
I
man.
would like to,
Yeah.
Okay.
comments.
Very cool. All right. So new Squid shirt. We're gonna send you one of these, Mike. Mansoor, we're gonna send you one as well. We're really excited about this. And if you haven't noticed yet, the tone of the Nautilus Notes is very casual. We're gonna try to keep it professional as much as we can, not get anyone in trouble. But it's going to be casual. It's going to be fun, and maybe a little bit raw. We're gonna look at some things. We might look at a bug. We might look at a limitation, and that's okay. The point is, we're all trying to solve problems. We're all trying to learn together. All right. So what's going on at Squid? A bunch of different things, and the first thing that I want to do is launch a poll here, because everyone who's on this call has been working with Squid for a while, and there are some things that we want to learn about how we can help you do your job better and feel better about working in the product. So go ahead and tell us, we want to know for you as a member of the Squid community, what areas are you most interested to see us focus on this year? Certifications, video content, user groups and meetups, or documentation and blog content. So please let us know. We'll come back to this. We want to know.
Squid employees respond to this? Yes.
Yeah, you know what? Squid employees are part of the Squid community. Absolutely. All right, so what else is going on? We just launched Squid Basics. Carl is the product manager for Squid Basics. Just give us a brief summary of what's going on there.
Just real brief summary. We've got 17 new videos. They are a replacement for some of the professional services engagements we've done, where we deliver training in a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 days. This covers everything a Squid new person needs to know.
Just to get started.
To get started, and then they'll be at a good place to go deeper into Squid.
And you know what? I just want to show off. Our cute little Squid guy. Gooey? We call him Gooey? Is he still Gooey? He's Gooey. All right. So go check that out. It's a great way to get started on Squid. We've also got some webinars. Jared, what do you got?
We got a note that our audio got a little quieter.
Audio got quieter. All right.
Testing.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Project.
Test.
Okay.
We were acting.
Thank you. Thank you. Good acting, everyone.
It's now better.
Now better. Excellent. Some new to Squid webinars. We're going to do those soon. And then finally, there's a new team at Squid, the Use team, User Success and Evangelism. Quick introduction. We've got Nate Cornyn, our senior manager there. Carl Sheffield, you might recognize him. He's our Microsoft advocate here at Squid. Zach McElrath, you know, our master of sorts of a non-denominational system of philosophy and combat. And my name is Matt Brown. I'm a solutions architect, and I am in what? What did you say?
Dev in the north.
A dev in the north, right. All right. Okay, I'm going to try and keep us moving here. So we have a quote of the week because Public Nautilus Notes is going to be monthly. We've got a quote of the month. We love this one. This is from our friend Joel Knudsen. He said, we don't know what our product does until we know how our customers use it. There's all kinds of features. There's all kinds of dreams about what Squid could do. But as soon as you put something out there in the wild, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, this is how people use it. This is what they need it for. And that's what we want to find out. We want to learn that. And so in light of that, let's look at our first segment, the contributor's choice. So the goal here is to hear about a Squid feature that you may not know about, and hear a little bit about its intent and the dream. And we know that people are going to use it for all kinds of different things. And we're going to pass around the Squid hat. If you present, you wear the hat. All right. So we're going to hear from Ben Hubbard here. Let me give you a quick introduction. We're going to talk about data source objects, which are related to SQL data sources in Squid. So in Squid, you can set up a data source, and one of those data source types is SQL. You can connect to PostgreSQL, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, a couple different flavors on AWS, on Azure, on Google Cloud. And one of the things that might be a little bit confusing if you're coming from Salesforce or Dynamics 365 for sales is that there's this whole other area that gets unlocked. It's like a secret game area of like Skyrim or something that you didn't know was there. And it's called data source objects, where you're configuring metadata. And this is a big differentiator for Squid. It's a really cool thing that lets you work at that metadata level for SQL data. So Ben, tell us a little bit about what was behind that. Why did we build that? Why did you build that? We didn't build it. You guys built that. And so, yeah, Ben is one of the original inventors of Squid and spent a lot of time on data source objects. So talk to us about it.
Okay. So the data that we connected with Squid is pretty complex and complicated, and it comes from all kinds of different sources. So what I want to talk about is metadata, and so that's basically data about your data. And so at Squid, when we talk about metadata, we mean like what objects are available for you to use in Squid. What fields do those objects have? What types are those fields? Are those fields numbers? Are they pick lists? Are they dates? Are they text strings? And so we started out thinking about when we connect to Salesforce, we actually read the metadata from Salesforce at runtime. And we read it directly from Salesforce's metadata API. And we do that as well with things like OData. OData provides the metadata for your data at runtime on demand. And now we've done some things with OData where you can cache that and for performance reasons. But when we created data source objects, what we wanted to do was create a place in Squid where at config time you own the metadata about your data. And the data source type that we rolled it out to first is the SQL data source type.
So let me stop you there. SQL or SQL?
I like to go with SQL because it's just the letters, and
I already asked you this,
but I'm not authoritative.
Okay, well I think you are, but just for everyone's benefit, if I say SQL at like a tech conference, am I going to lose any credibility?
Probably not.
Okay, cool.
But you will lose credibility if you name one of the microservices that you use Sequil.
Oh, right.
Mm.
Which is
Yeah.
what
Hey.
has happened
Yes.
before. Okay, got it.
That's low. That's low.
Oh man. Okay. All right, moving on. That's good. All right. So Ben, thanks for sharing a little bit about that. If you have Squid, you have access to SQL data sources. Where you can get to those data source objects is going to be in your configure section. So if you go to configure in the Squid app, data sources, go to your SQL data source there, and then that gear icon will let you configure it. You'll get to the data source detail where you can set up some of the things like your username and password. But then down at the bottom, you have your data source objects. And this is where you can configure that metadata for those SQL tables that you're connecting to. Anything else you want to add before we finish up?
Yeah. So especially with SQL data sources, the metadata that comes back from those data sources is different. Like an Oracle database will give you different values than a Microsoft SQL database. And it's a lot of times slow to inspect the metadata of those databases. So with data source objects, what we're doing is we're saying we're going to defer that inspecting of the metadata for those databases to config time, let you import it at once, and then Squid's going to store that metadata in a very fast cache that you only have to go to Squid to know the metadata about your data. And you can augment that data. So let's say you have a text field in your Oracle database, but you want it to actually behave like a pick list to your Squid UI. You can go ahead and do that.
Awesome.
With data source objects.
Very cool. We could spend a lot more time on SQL and DSOs, and we will. We want to do more content on this. Speaking of which, thank you. Poll results come back. It's clear you want more video content, and so we hear that. We are working. Yeah, Carl is really excited about that.
We've got you covered.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing that, and it sounds like there's plenty more material that we can look at just with SQL and DSOs. And then also certifications, those come in at number 2. So, all right, very cool. That's where you go to get DSOs and connect to SQL. Ben, thanks so much. All right, yeah, we'll take the presenter.
Time Turkey said that was great.
Oh, man, all right.
There is a bit of a memory leak on the Time Turkey.
Awesome. All right, very cool. So the other thing I wanted to, there was a question about how to get to this information. So yeah, this is the draft of what will be a dev blog post. So again, related to how you get to that content, whether it's video, a blog, or whatever, we want to push this out there to help the Squid community get better. So we're gonna work this up a little bit. There's some more formatting that we'll need to do, add a few more GIFs, a few more memes. And then we'll put that out there as a dev blog post.
And also, we're going to continue to try to push traffic to community.squid.com because it needs some love, and we need you guys to give it some love.
Yeah, absolutely. And we realize that there's been a lot of things that have happened with the Squid community, Squid product over the years. Please go on there, ask questions, and we want to engage you there. All right, so we're going to go now into a segment of the Nautilus Notes where we share some of the lessons that have been learned by Squid solutions engineers. And the first stop on that is going to be looking at Skuid V2. Now, if you got into Squid Spark, which is the latest release of Squid, you will have seen that there's some pretty big changes. There's now a Squid V1 and a Squid V2. V2 adds whole new areas of functionality. The Design System Studio, the Ink component library, which is designed to work with the design system. And so it's new technology, and it takes a little while to learn new tools. Wen York has spent a lot of time working in V2, and I asked her if she would share some really cool things that she has seen in V2. So Wen, that's right, give it up for Wen. Pass the squid, and the turkey is gonna cheer
mess
you
up
on.
my hair, but it's okay.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right.
All right. So, Wen, what's really cool in V2?
V2, the Design System Studio is really, really, really cool. If you haven't checked it out, you should check it out. And if you like a design nerd, like a lot of us, you will love it, and you'll find it like such an intelligent and sensible way to style an app. So can I share my screen? with
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. And while you're setting that up, the Design System Studio is the spiritual successor, the next phase and evolution of the theme builder. And that's going to be available in the same area of the Squid app where you can get to themes or the design system.
Yes, so theme will still be there, but then the Design System Studio is then the new thing. So I think everyone can access the design system. That's really cool, and you can do all sorts of things in there. But I just want to show. This is the very first thing I did with V2. I made a style guide. I was like, okay, I have a brand. I have a design I want to follow. Can I make it happen? So I went ahead and did that. And so you can see like in this like small section right here, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different text variants, all declaratively.
Awesome.
And so when I change the design for this text, well, all of these texts will be updated as well. So it's super easy if I want to change this scheme to, let's say, not a happy ocean blue, but a purple, then I'll just update that one color and the entire style guide will follow that.
Awesome.
And it just makes a lot more sense.
Let me stop you there. A couple notes. So one of the things that's unique about V2 is that you can't put CSS in there. So that's all declarative. So a ton of new functionality on what you can do with your styles using the Design System Studio. That is really, really cool. And I also want to highlight, you did something that we're seeing kind of emerge as a good best practice, which is to create what we call a kitchen sink page.
Mm-hmm.
Create a kitchen sink page.
Yeah,
we
we
have
had
some
comment
tech issues.
So Bill says he's not seeing Wynn's screen.
Ah,
I'm seeing it.
you're seeing it? Anyone else not seeing it?
I can see it.
Yeah, we got it.
I can see it.
All right.
So
Well, yeah, if someone wants to dig into that and see if we're having other issues, that would be great.
Wait, someone else confirmed they can. So,
Okay.
so I guess
All right. But no, this is a good best practice. Create a design kitchen sink page where you've got all the possible components within a style framework, so that your designers can see what's possible and they don't go give you a design spec that's completely outside the realm of what's possible. So that's really cool. So you mentioned the word variance, and that's one of the things that's unique about V2 is this ability to create style variants in a design system. Can you talk a little bit about, for instance, using variants with button styles? What are some of the things that we can do to create different buttons?
Yeah, so buttons get so much love with V2, and not like just with the style variants, which are just different styling options, but even in the builders, in the builder, the app composer as well, you get a lot of configuration options there. So so here I have different button variants for different use cases. For example, a file upload, and on each of the app composer, you can select whether or not you want the icon on the left or the icon on the right. If you want the button to have text only or icon only.
Mm-hmm.
So so combining the options on the page composer and the Design System Studios, you can have many different
Awesome.
buttons options. And
and one thing I saw is that you've got circular buttons, which can be really, really helpful when it comes to mobile development. And that's another thing that you shared with me was that the design system makes for a lot easier mobile development. What are some things that have helped with that?
Yeah. So yeah, V2 and V2. I would say V2 loves mobile.
Okay.
It's built for mobile.
V2 loves mobile. Hashtag,
That's true.
whatever Twitter thing you want to do with that.
And so I'll share this link, but we have a public a place where we have sample pages that we built, and you can install this onto your Squid site. So you can, if you like it, you can put your Squid site subdomain, and you can actually install it into your Squid site and see it.
So Wynn, can I interrupt? So I could go and install this and then see the page behind it and basically borrow your creative stuff and, you know, help one of my customers or help my boss get things done.
All right.
You get
Okay.
data storage,
Just
you get
making sure,
the
'cause that's what I do.
system.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I shared the link, but the mobile piece here, like we have a couple of mobile examples here. But yeah, V2 is built for mobile. It's built especially with things like the list component or the full width buttons options, and also rendering based on viewport width.
Oh, yes.
And I'll just like show that real quick. So let's say I have a menu on the left side and I don't want that to show in mobile. I want a slide out for mobile instead. Then I can decide to render it off at a certain screen size. And yeah, that just makes
That is so awesome.
so much easier to build something.
So in case you've ever done this and used media queries in CSS to render different components or sections of a page based on your form factor, you don't have to do that anymore. It's now an option in Squid's display logic. You can render based on your viewport. So that's tremendously exciting. I'm actually going to stop us there just to keep us moving. One other thing, actually, you know what? Do you want to pull up a list? Do you have a list that you can show real quick? Or I think we have a screenshot of that in the in the doc.
I do have a list that I can show. So this is the list component that has an avatar. So for your pictures or whatever. And in the same list, you can have different text variants. So you can have different stylings there for your text, and you can either add interactions on the item or separate buttons.
So it's all the best stuff from both the table and the queue, and you're no longer doing it in HTML. You're doing it declaratively using Squid stuff.
Okay. Just one moment.
Yeah.
So if I really like this, but I can't use it in a V1 page, in my app, I can still mix pages, right? I can call a page from, say, a V1 page and include it in.
It's not all or nothing,
No,
right?
it's not.
No.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah. So you can.
On
Well,
an
you can
individual
have-
page, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
But
At
for
the
an
page
entire-
level.
You can't have
Yeah.
a V2
Yeah.
child page about V1.
Right. Yeah, no, that's all we're saying.
But
Yeah.
yes.
So don't put a V1 page inside a V2 page or vice versa. But you can have V1 pages and V2 pages in your environment. And you have, if you are on Squid Spark, you have access to V2 right now, and you can go build with V2 right now. Go kick the tires, play with us, let us know what's good, let us know what we should work on. That's what we want to. That's what we want to do with y'all as part of the Squid technical community. So, Wen, thank you so much. That is awesome. I'm just gonna give. It's just so exciting. So I got another poll here. I'm gonna launch it. We want to know: have you had much of a chance to play with V2 yet? If so, let us know. If you haven't, let us know. I'm gonna put that in there, and we'll come back to it. I do know. I saw John Dahlberg, who is very active on the community in the webinar, and I just want to give him a shout out because he's given us a ton of great feedback on V2. So thank you so much for that.
Can I just jump in one more
Yeah,
time
go ahead.
and say,
Absolutely, John.
your feedback makes all of us better, not just the people in this room or on this site or this webinar. And we're not looking for the fluffy, we like this stuff. We want really good, solid feedback. Tell us the hard stuff because we want to help you. We're all motivated to help the Squid user, and we need your feedback to do that.
In fact, John Dolber, that's for the real round of applause to happen. Is that
Yeah,
here?
another one for John Dahlberg. Absolutely. Very cool. All right, Wen, thank you so much. I'm going to keep us moving. The time turkey's staring me down. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about is from Zach, who's going to talk to us a little bit about merge variables and merge syntax. So if you've spent a good bit of time in Squid, you know that the cool things you can do don't stop with just components. There's this whole realm that's kind of a gray area of, it's not code, it's markup, I guess, where you're just reaching straight into the data stream and pulling in merge variables. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it, especially with UI-only fields and formulas. And I will take a second, I do want to plug, we'll put this in the blog. We do have a couple of videos on UI-only fields and merge variables in the Squid Basics playlists on our YouTube channel. So definitely check those out. So Zach, what's going on with row metadata and previous and next rows?
So I want to share a couple of row-specific merge properties that you may not know exist, and that can give you some special powers when doing things in the context of a particular row.
Special powers.
So first one is that you can access metadata properties about rows, such as, is the row new? Has it been newly created in the Squid page and not saved yet? You can also find out, is it marked for deletion? Is it a clone of a previously existing record that isn't saved yet? And you can get all this through the JavaScript API. There are some methods that you can use to access that. But you can also do it through merge syntax. So where this is all captured is in a special metadata object that's specific to each row called a row's record. And so in row, wherever you have a row merge context, you can use record dot and some properties such as ID, as well as is new, is marked for deletion, is clone.
Let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Metadata object, is that a Salesforce metadata object
No,
or
it's
a JavaScript?
Squid's own metadata object.
Awesome. So it's not unique to Salesforce. You get it in Squid platform.
Yeah, it's just internal. It's just kind of just so you know, kind of
that's great.
Under the hood there. So that's how we keep track of row specific metadata properties, as opposed to actual fields from the data source. So like if you've got a contact object, you know, coming from Salesforce or wherever that's located in SQL, you might have properties like first name, last name, email. Those would be stored on the row as fields about that row. Metadata properties specific to Squid are things like, what's Squid's identifier for that row? Is it marked for deletion? Is it new? So that's
awesome.
Kind of the differentiator there.
Very cool.
Yeah, so you can do some interesting things with this, such as in an action sequence, you might want to only run an action if a row is saved already. And so you could say, if record dot is new, in the example we're looking at in this image, then I want to show a message and say, oh, can't interact with this row because it's not saved yet, and then break the action sequence. Don't move on to any subsequent actions. So I'm going to show this in just a second. Let's pull this up. I'm going to just do share real quick. And mine.
And while you're doing that, at the end of this, and we'll also put this in the blog, I do want to remind you, there is some great content on merge syntax and merge variables in our docs. Josh Cutler, Cody Taylor, both here in the room, also Dave Connis, Casey Arnold-Dentz, they all do fantastic work trying to give you really good content in our documentation. And there are 3 really good pages on merge syntax that if you're a Squid practitioner, you should probably bookmark those. You maybe already have. I think they're in our top 10 most viewed docs. So that'll be in the blog post. And yeah, a lot of good stuff there. All right, Zach,
Matt.
yeah, show us.
So give the example here, I have a row action on a table of tasks. And if I click mark completed, we can just go ahead and run that sequence of actions and we're done. Now I can, if I was to add a brand new task here that has not been saved yet, and then I go click mark completed, it's going to give me a little error and say, you have to mark the task. You have to save it before you can go do that. Now that's totally arbitrary, but that's just an example of using that.
Access to those properties.
Yeah, using that record level property here in the branch action, record dot is new in context of that row, will give you that ability to do that.
And you can just reference those merge variables here without having to create a UI only formula field that contains them too. So that's something else that if you're kind of new to merge syntax, you can just access it directly. You don't have to store it in a field somewhere.
So, but wait, there's more. There's some other things you can get access that are useful as well, related to the position of a row within its siblings within a model. So you can, have you ever wanted to know, am I on the first row in a model or the last?
Only all the time.
If you do want to do that, we have something for you. You can use record dot is first or dot is last, or shortcut just first or last, and you can access that. You can also access the relative position but via index, so record dot index or index. And I'm going to show an example is that can be really useful for kind of doing things like giving me the ability to compare to a previous or next row. The trick here, it's a special tricky pattern, is if you define a formula field called whatever you want. Here I just called it index. It's very close to the actual special property, but all this does is just give us a field associated with the index, and that'll update whenever its index changes. Then you get the ability to do things like this. I'm going to go make just a field called quantity, and then multiplied quantity just goes and grabs the previous row's quantity and multiplies it. So you can get this kind of multiplicative effect.
Quick shout out, you're using the model lookup function there. Awesome function in Squid formula fields. And we're also using it within the context of the same model. You don't have to have model lookup look to different models. You can use a model lookup just to reference a different row in the same model. And so model lookup plus index is a pretty powerful combo.
So yeah, so what I'm doing here at the very end of this model lookup is getting the current row's index and subtracting 1 from it. So that gives me the ability to go look up by the index field the previous row in the model. Then I'm multiplying it. So that's shown here. Basically, I've got this row, this first one, and its quantity, if you multiply it by 5 to give me this multiplied quantity. You know, I can change this to another thing, get a different number. But that's kind of just a contrived example of how you could use that, but very useful for doing previous and next row comparisons.
Awesome. Zach, thank you so much. That is fantastic. And if you haven't been following in the group chat, Josh has been posting links to our docs. So thank you for doing that. And anything else before we finish up? All right.
It's taken
He's
off
taking
the
off
hat.
the hat. All right. Okay.
No longer
Thank you, Zach. That was excellent. All right. So it looks like most folks, or a good chunk of folks, have been playing with V2, and a few of you have even deployed V2 pages, but a good number haven't yet. So I do want to take this time and remind you that in case you didn't know, most of you probably know, but you can get a free Squid developer account. It's 2 non-expiring licenses. You can go install Squid platform and connect to all the data that we can connect to, and go play with V2 today. So if you don't have that yet, please go do that. We want to get you going. And the cool thing is that we use Intercom, and so this little guy down here, you can reach out to us directly from within Squid. So go do that and beat down our door with feedback and questions as you dig in. Okay, cool. Let's keep moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is what do you got?
Oh no, sorry.
Cool. Yeah, Carl.
All this talk about indexes made me want to tell my stupid joke.
Oh, sure.
Why did the developer quit his job?
Why?
Because he didn't get a raise.
Brilliance. Brilliance. Oh man, we will be here all week, all month. We'll be coming back next month with those jokes.
All right.
Thank you. That's why
I
I'm here.
Ben
just got it. Oh man. Okay.
Seriously though, it trips me up all the time when arrays start with 0. So
I thought you were
very
continuing the joke there for a second, but that was a serious. No, that's great. Okay, awesome. All right, so this next segment is something that we're going to do each month as well. We know that at some point, everyone hits that last 5 or 10% of an engagement where your client or your customer wants to see things a very specific way, or there's very specific functionality that we want. And for whatever reason, it's something that didn't make it into a component. Maybe it was too specific and we didn't componentize it, or we just haven't gotten there yet. And so one of the cool things about Squid is that it's extensible. You can add JavaScript to your actions layer as a snippet. And then in V1, you can also do custom renderers and custom components.
What
about
Why are you
V2?
looking at me like
What's the
presently?
Can't do it in V2.
Can't do it.
We want to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to commit to anything right now, but
Nice plan.
yeah. Okay, cool. So we can say that. All right, we can say that. So that's planned. But you can do it right now in V1, and we are working on some ways to make it easy to share and distribute those kinds of things. And so I wanted Matt Davis to share something that's really useful, and it's the idea of adding custom formulas to a page. Matt, are you on? We might need to make him, we might need
Hi,
to.
promoter. There.
Demutify.
You're unmuted now, man.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, so Matt, tell us a little bit about what you did here, and if you've got it up and can show it to us in runtime, that would be great.
Yep. I'll explain it and then I'll switch over to me and I'll share a little bit. So custom formulas are similar to what Zach showed with model lookup and things like that. Squid has a bunch of built-in form functions that you can use for UI-only fields that are super useful. Use them all the time, but there's times where you maybe want to do something custom. So like, for example, what these ones are is if you use something like Excel or Google Sheets, they have the whole idea of like summing and sum if, where you can pass in a bunch of fields and say, hey, sum all these values or sum conditionally. And there's been times where I've wanted to do that on pages where, you pull in a full list of information and you have everything there and you want to show KPIs. You can either run more queries, with filters to get those KPIs, or use the info that you already have on the page and not have to have additional load in the page.
Awesome.
And you do that with these custom formulas. So the way it works, I'll share here.
And what's great about this is that it's allowing you to do client-side aggregation. So if you've ever wanted to get a sum of rows on a table outside of that little box at the bottom of the table, these are the kinds of things that are going to let you do this. And by adding it as JavaScript in the page, and maybe as a shared resource, now that's something that someone that doesn't know JavaScript can actually go and call those formulas in a field. So it's a good way to scale out that development. All right.
Thanks, Matt. So first we'll go through the quick function of like what it looks like, and then I'll show you how it's done. So this is an example page with a bunch of opportunities and values, and all these KPIs are done with those formulas I showed earlier. So it's not an additional query. It's just looking at this data and saying, average days to one is, hey, for ones that we've won, what's the average, which I picked a bad example because I can't do that average off the top of my head. So we're going to cheat and switch over to median days, 38. So we can go look at this. We got 14, 22, 38, 55, 108. 38 is the middle one there. So just doing it correctly. And what that looks like for the KPIs, we'll go look at total closed one. So this is your sum if example. So it's math sum if, which is something I define in the JavaScript. And then these are different parameters that I also define in the JavaScript for what it's going to take in. So in this case, it's which model am I looking at? What field am I going to sum? And my if statement. So if stage is equal to closed one.
Awesome. And you're calling that, but where is that in the page? Can you show me?
Yep. Bingo. So these are inline resources. I call it custom formulas. So that sum if example here, it's just this block. So what you define is that name that I said where it's math __ sum if, how many arguments it's going to take in, what it's going to return. And then in here, you just have the function of, hey, I'm passing in these 5 variables. Here's what I want to do with it. And in this case, it's running another function up here, which says, all right, go get all the rows that this is talking about based on the model name. And then we're going to go ahead and we filter it by that if statement. So it only is the rows that you care about. And it uses this unsupported Squid API of Squid aggregations aggregate and says, all right, in this case, it passed in sum. So we're going to want to sum the field name, which was amount, and blanks we're not going to count. That's just kind of a extra variable you can look at, but then it's going to use those rows that it filtered down. So it's just doing sum the amount for the rows that had closed one equal to, or stage equal to closed one.
Awesome. You're getting wows in the group chat there, by the way. Great work. And thank you so much for sharing that. Again, we're working on figuring out some ways to make a repo public. And so be on the lookout for that. That's coming soon. And Jer is, he's here with us. I'm going to have him, I totally steamrolled him and completely didn't let him share anything this week or this month, but he's going to share one of these Squid Labs highlights each month, or I'm going to invite him, and then I'm going to talk the whole time. So, Jerry, you want to say hi at least?
Hi.
Hi.
We don't care about
Yeah. So Jared's working on putting together Squid Labs, and then Cody on product content team has also been instrumental in working on that. So be on the lookout. And to keep us moving, I'm going to move on to our next segment here. We don't just want to hear from Squid SEs, SAs, PSEs. We also want to hear from our customers and partners that are out there and working with the product. And so I was talking with Mansoor at Sassly and asked him if he could show something he'd been working on that was really, really cool related to using e-signatures, custom e-signatures in a mobile context. So a little bit about Mansoor. He's at Sassly, which is a Squid partner. They are based out of LA, and they've got a strong expertise when it comes to Squid-based CPQ tools, complex forms, and company-wide system consolidation, using Squid as that centralized platform that's going to tie everything together. Mansoor was a principal solutions engineer at Salesforce for 4 years. He advised over 900 Salesforce customers on how to best structure their CRM strategy. And he left Salesforce to start a Squid consulting company 4 years ago. And they've been helping Squid customers get up and running ever since, and they're great at that. So Mansoor, tell us a little bit about this use case and what you did to help your customer.
All right, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, coming through.
All right, perfect. So this example that I'm going to highlight, which after looking at Huan's page looks not nearly as good, is for a manufacturing company that originally started using Squid for a CPQ use case and eventually wanted to get their field service team on board. So you have an organization that visits factories to take a look at massive multi-million-dollar machines and essentially need to service them. Take screenshots of issues, collaborate with engineering, log their time, get signatures on their time so they're able to charge customers for that particular time that they end up servicing. So we use Squid in order to put together this mobile field service application where they're able to do everything that they need to do straight from a mobile device. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Share my desktop. All right. Let me know if you guys can see that all right.
Yep.
We got it.
All right, perfect. So in order to get the field service team to be able to properly move off of paper and move on to technology, we had to make sure that the technology had to follow them. The likelihood is they weren't going to show up to their client meetings with a laptop, open it, ask for the Wi-Fi password. Whatever solution we needed to build needed to be something that was built for the mobile device. So we opted to use Squid and to make sure that we designed our page to really be fluid with the way that they worked. So a little bit of things that we've noticed while building Squid mobile pages: build using decks, not using tables. They scale a lot better. If they're on an iPad, you'll have a little bit wider real estate. If you're on iPhone Plus, or if you're on an iPhone regular or an Android device, they just work a lot better than tables do. The other thing that we've noticed while building apps on for mobile, as opposed to necessarily building them for desktop, is to go for sliding panels as opposed to pop-ups. The scroll feature just works a lot better with a sliding panel. And this was really important when we wanted to build out one of the key functionalities in here, which is to get access to case details. There's a lot of information around the labor tickets, or around the cases that they end up handling, and all that scrolling was a lot better when they had a full screen sliding panel that they're able to go into and then simply close off when they needed it. So sliding panels and decks are your friends while building mobile first solutions.
Awesome.
Move away from tables, move away from pop-ups. The second key thing that I wanted to point out is, in order for them to move away from paperless, and in order for us to really make sure that the solution gave more to them than took away from them, is we had to incorporate two major key functionalities. The first one, for them to be able to take photos of certain issues in that machine, be able to tag those photos and be able to submit those photos over to engineering in order to get some real-time feedback. And we ended up doing that with a Squid, essentially a JavaScript library that we found, where they're able to take a photo, click on that photo, and on their phone literally be able to draw out issue and then that goes straight to engineering. So that was a really interesting use case. Whereas before they had to take a photo, go home to their hotel, plug in the actual SD card, upload that photo, tag it, and email it to engineering. They could do all of this now on their phone.
Oh man.
The other massive piece of functionality that was required is the signatures that were needed on labor tickets. So every time they were on site, they would end up logging their time, and then they need to capture the customer signature in order to be able to trigger a billable event with the client. So what we ended up doing is simply building a button in here called Capture Signature. When you click on Capture Signature, it loads all the time that has yet to be signed off. And what they would do is they would hand over their phone or their iPad or their iPhone Plus to the client. The client would go in, type their name, type their title, and draw on the phone their signature. They needed to make a modification, they can, and they're able to do that. That was done using a Squid custom component that I absolutely stole from the Squid community.
All right.
So shout out to the community, great place to steal code / borrow code, depending on how aggressive you are. Stores this signature as a text string in a field, in this case, Salesforce. It can really be any database. So the moment a signature is saved, we can trigger Salesforce to then generate an invoice for the labor tickets that have been signed off of as a part of this particular case, driving a huge amount of automation. So if you think of the before, paper labor tickets, people wrote down their time, captured a physical signature, they end up waiting to get back to the office, scan it, email those forms over to finance, and manually generates an invoice. We're able to do all of this directly at the point of signature. The moment a client hits save a signature, an invoice is generated over to them. They're able to get revenue a lot more quickly.
Awesome. Awesome. Big round of applause. That's fantastic. Man, thank you so much for showing that. And again, just highlighting the extensibility of Squid, that ability to go find custom libraries that do really, really cool things and bring those in when you need them.
Man, I'm so stinking motivated right now.
So
This is awesome.
Yeah, Mansoor, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna keep us moving. We're coming up on time here. There's a few things that I wanted to cover before we finish. I'm not gonna go into depth on this. We'll put it in the blog post. One of the things that I do want to cover every time we do the Nautilus Notes is a red flag. What is something that when you hear it, your antenna should go up because be prepared for it to mean something completely different to every person that you talk to based on what they need. And one of those that we've seen is search. So I'm not going to go into the details here, but search requirements in terms of what the experience is gonna be like really vary wildly based on the need of the customer, based on what you're trying to do. And so that's one of those things where it should make you stop and say, okay, let's understand exactly what you're trying to do, what problems are you trying to solve, get to those details at the scoping level. And then once you have a good sense of exactly what they're trying to do, Squid has a lot of tools that help you navigate that. And you don't have to do it just one way. Our search component is great, but we also have search in our filter set component. You can also build a search from scratch using field properties on reference fields or text fields, and then some of the different actions like we have like search model and stuff like that. So there's a lot there. We'll put that in the blog post. Go ahead and take a look at that. But that's one red flag that when you hear it come as a requirement, oh, okay, actually we might hit some unknowns here. Okay, so to finish up, I want to hear from the product content team, because we've got Josh and Cody here, and then also from product engineering, we've got Jay Tingle in the house. So guys, what's going on product content? What have you been working on? What's out there?
You want to take this one? Yeah. Okay. So everyone, Cody from the product content team here. Something that we came out with not too long ago was docs on automated testing. We recognize that it's kind of hard to go through every single page in your application, clicking through, making sure all the buttons work. So we wanted to have some instruction on how to use just a general overview of what automated testing is like, just as a concept, some of the tools and concepts to be familiar with. And then nested beneath that topic is an example of using Node.js, Selenium, and Jasmine as a testing framework. The TLDR is use a whole lot of unique IDs and come up with repeatable test cases. and give those docs a look, and hopefully they get you down the right path.
Unique,
So,
memorable, meaningful IDs.
yes.
So when you're looking at the code, you know what it is.
As opposed to ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
But I
yeah,
can use
yeah.
that, so.
All right. Thank you so much, Cody and Josh, and thank you for constantly giving us great content on our documentation site. There's a lot of good stuff there. Again, we're trying to link to it as much as we can. And if you check the webinar chat, there's a ton of great links in there again from Josh. All right, Jay, what's happening on the product side?
All right, just a few quick things, some near-term stuff that you can expect from product updates. We've got some improvements that some of these are already actually available on platform.
Okay.
Should be rolling out soon. In V2, you can finally do conditional rendering on filters.
Individual filters?
Individual
Not just the whole
filters,
filter
not
set?
just the whole
Oh, yes.
Something we wanted for a long time.
Excellent.
And it's rolled out in our V2 filter set. You can now download the go straight to download with Page XML Composer without having to flip over to the XML editor, copy, paste, save. It's one step now. You don't have to actually leave the builder to download that. That's in V1 and V2. And then reference fields in V2 can now be displayed as pick lists.
Hey,
Before
that's
this
great.
change, they were always autocompletes, even if there were only 2
Okay.
records to autocomplete. So that's
Cool,
rolled
cool.
out. Continuing on with that theme, you might have noticed V2, we're continuing to iterate and close the gaps with V1, working on enhancements there. And then in V1, it's all about stability and optimization. So most of the changes there you're seeing these days are going to be in service of that.
Awesome.
Fixing bugs and speeding things up from a performance standpoint.
Awesome.
Look for a maintenance release next week, 12.1.5. We expect to drop next week. We'll include bug fixes and minor feature enhancements. That's all I got.
Awesome.
Sliding in on a banana peel.
All right. We'll try and get everyone out of here right at the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. We are going to send out a feedback survey. We want to know how we can make this better for everyone. Thank you, guys, for joining. Join us on the community. Post ideas there. We'll be looking for your engagement, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Nautilus Notes in July.
Woohoo!
All right. Take care. See ya.